Hi there, Glocal citizens. Welcome back to the podcast that inspires a borderless mindset around manifesting a new world. I am your host, Florence Adu, coming to you from Accra. And I just want to, before we were talking, we were speaking a little bit about, when light goes. I was speaking with my guest about that. And my morning was hijacked because of a light issue. So I'm just going to go through these, and I want to say, folks, I don't want to be a complainer, but lately I've just been feeling the heaviness of the whole world, but then particularly of just being in a place where some of the ethic of living is counter to quality of life. So for example, today, apparently they changed my electrical meter months ago, but they installed it in someone else's house. So when I went to go and top up, because it's a pay as you go top up, they said, oh, it's inactive. So I went on Monday to get the meter to, address it. And the lady who's working there, she's on her phone the entire time and says, someone will call you. I said, okay. So the next day I called just to make sure, because she didn't seem very convincing. And true to form, the woman said, you should probably go back and talk to someone else. So work life takes its toll. So I go there today and great service. I'm told, well, you have to go here and there, and they have to go and get the meter that's meant for your place to come back and install it. Meanwhile, I have probably about a day or two of power left, when on Monday I had a whole week. So it's just that type of relax that, we have to think about. And all of that to say, thank you, power gods, for keeping the power on for this conversation. Fingers crossed. Yes, but we managed. So that was part of the theme of our pre-conversations. We managed. So Let me just get to our conversation to lighter and truly light things. She is my guest, who I met late last year at the Pa Gya Festival. So that's a little bit of background. And we're going to talk about what she was doing there, which was not slightly different than all of her. Well, she does a lot. So let's do the bio. She is a writer, poet, performer, curator, and storyteller. Her practice sits in the tapestry of art, media, and advocacy. As a poet/performer, she has released 3 spoken word albums, taking her across Africa, Europe, and North America, with commissions from the Edinburgh International Festival, Deutsches Museum, Fonds Socioculture, and the Gates Foundation. As a journalist, she has worked with The Guardian, CNN, BBC, Observer, and Al Jazeera, receiving fellowships from the Gabriel Garcia Marquez Foundation, the International Women's Media Foundation, and a One World Media Awards nomination. She was awarded a Ford Foundation grant for her multimedia traveling exhibition, Dirty Laundry. She runs the Comfort Food Storytelling Workshop, which uses food memories to inspire new stories alongside other curatorial work exploring food, memory, identity, and the body. Added to her artistic and storytelling practice, she lectures, facilitates trainings, and works as a storytelling communications consultant. She is the recipient of the Ama Ata Edu Fellowship at Northwestern University and the Camargo Foundation Fellowship. Wana Udobang. Welcome.
Thank you. We have a long bio, but we appreciate it.
Yes. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm sorry for all the drama that you've had to go through today as well.
Thank you. I mean, it is. And thank you for those sentiments. I needed that. So it's all good. I wanted to be sure to read your full bio because I love the breadth of all of the things that you have done. And I love to give that kind of information to help flower itself, to have it bloom in the conversation. So let's get started and then we'll learn more.
Okay.
Where are you from? Where are you local? And what is your craft?
Ooh, okay. So I am from Nigeria. Ancestrally within Nigeria, I am from Akwa Ibom State, which is in the south of Nigeria. My ethnicity is Ibibio. So my language is Ibibio. So we share a border with Cameroon. But I was born in Lagos. So I also say, I always find it difficult when people ask me, where are you from? Because I'm from Lagos, because I'm a Lagosian.
Yeah.
I was born and raised in Lagos. And I live in Lagos now. I did leave Nigeria for some time, but I've been back here the last 15 years. So I live in Lagos.
Okay. All right. And so tell us a little bit more about your Lagos. Like where Lagos is a big city. There's the mainland, there's the island, so not necessarily getting too specific because we know there's all kinds of potential issues. Tell us about your Lagos.
I live on Lagos mainland in Ikeja.
Okay. I'm familiar.
And I always feel like the way I kind of speak about Ikeja for all the mainland, for me, it's like mainland is home and I feel like island is work. So the island feels like going into town. That's kind of how I treat it, when I'm going to the island, I'm going to either hang out with friends or going to work or meeting or something along those lines. But then mainland just feels homely, and I quite like that. I like that lo-fi energy.
Yeah, I hear that a lot, actually.
Of like crossing the bridge, yes.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. So that makes a lot of sense, and I find that it's kind of true. Like I feel the difference. Like people feel like a little bit more real on the mainland, and it's a little bit more like, let's be glitzy and glamoury and all that stuff. So
yes, exactly. It's super like it's glamorous on the island. And, I actually even find like the energy of it in general, where when I am going there, I feel the need to dress up a bit more. And then when I'm on the mainland, I'm just like, I just go with my flip-flops where I'm going, like I don't really care. So
exactly.
Exactly. But I like that dichotomy as well. Like it allows you to transit different like energies and like just modes of being.
Yes.
As well. So I quite enjoy it.
It's kind of like how I feel like Brooklyn is home, and you can, when you go into the city, it's like, oh, we're going into the city, so let's get a little bit more fancy and that kind of thing, because it's so
yes,
I can dig it. Okay, so you told us where you're from, you told us where you're local.
Yeah.
What is your craft in your own words?
Ooh, what's my craft? So these days, I always say, I'm a writer, poet, performer, but I also just generally put it all under storytelling because I find myself always kind of playing around with mediums. I've also like attempted filmmaking at some point, and I made some documentaries and short films. I've made installation art too. So yeah, I'm an artist. I'm an artist and storyteller. That's what I do. I just paint with text and with words. And sometimes I embody them in performance, sometimes they're visual, But yeah, I'm an artist and storyteller. That's really what I do.
I love that you said that. You paint with text and words because, that is poetry. And so that is really what poetry does, is it paints a picture of life lived with words. It makes it an auditory experience. And so, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. As I was prepping for this, I was listening to your poetry. And it reminded me of my days. Oh, don't be. I mean, you have a full body of like poetry that's working. And so back in the day when I first got out of university and was becoming my own craftsperson, right? I lived in DC, and this is when I think the slam movement had just kind of started to pick up steam. Or just the spoken word was a little bit less bohemian, becoming a little bit more, I don't want to say mainstream, but it was coming out. It was right before Def Poetry Jam and all those things that really kind of put spoken word poetry like right on the stage. So every week, me and my friends, we go write poetry and go read at a little tea house, coffee house in Adams Morgan in DC. So I have so many poems about my life then.
Wow.
And so when I was listening to your poetry, it just really took me back to the reason why I have so many poems, because I'm a journaler, but I've always been a writer myself. And so poetry became my way of painting a picture of my life at that time. So I appreciate you saying that.
I love that.
Bringing that to words. Yeah. So how does a young lady who grew up in Lagos, in Nigeria, I won't say this in the, cliche-ish way that people always say, oh, if you're an African child, you can't be an artist and all the things. But I find that so many of my Nigerian friends, their parents didn't frown on their artistry, right? I mean, there's a lot of technical, but I feel like there's less of that. So tell us how you were able to become the creative that you are.
I think there's a part of it that maybe being a last child, being the youngest in the family has to do with it, because they just look at you like, there's a kind of like you have to raise yourself. So you watch everybody and figure out what to do. Nobody's really like paying attention to you.
Yeah.
But then I studied journalism. So I think that kind of bridged this gap between the professional side of writing.
Yes.
Right. And and being a poet. So I was always doing poetry, but then I studied journalism. I worked on the radio. So there was a kind of serious side that I allowed to placate into, to kind of pivot into being a poet full time. That it wasn't too jarring for anyone.
Sure.
So it was like I was starting telling stories with work on the radio and writing, and then okay, this poetry, you always do this thing anyway, but then
so you ease them into it.
It didn't feel too jarring. It didn't feel too jarring for anyone, really. But I think I think my family's always kind of seen me as a bit of a renegade in some way. And they've always, I really feel quite lucky with that, to be honest. I just think that they recognize who I am, like my spirits. When I see it now, I realize that. I didn't think of that when I was younger, when it was happening. But when I think about it now, because I remember even going to study journalism because even that, people didn't really study. You have to, again, doctor, lawyer, engineer, accountant or family disgrace. Just like, what is this thing? And everyone's like, journalists are broke anyway. So they're like, why are you going to do this? So there was still a concern,
Sure.
It's like, even as a professional, you have chosen poverty as a profession. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
But I think there was I think everyone, my siblings always saw that I was just different. So I even remember telling my brother when I was going to university, I was like, I'm going to study journalism. And he's like, do what you want. And I remember him saying that. It was very, it's like, he's like, you can do what you want, And it was really cool. So I feel like I've always kind of been affirmed. There's always been a feeling that amongst my family that she will be all right.
Yeah.
They always see me as someone who survived many things. They're like, she'll be okay. And there's a kind of silent vote of confidence that they all have. So I never really had any pushback towards any part of my career. So as a result, And it helps that I'm super responsible as well and organized. So
right. I mean, exactly. So they never had to worry.
Because I think sometimes the problem with when people have a lot of this pushback is a sense of aimlessness that parents see. And that's scary for any parent or sibling to watch, like your sibling or your child is looking a bit aimless, like what's going on. But I think if you do have a sense of like control or being organized or a sense of direction, whatever it is you're doing, it kind of gives people a sense of confidence in where you're going.
Absolutely.
So even if that path is unconventional, it just looks like, you know what, this person has an idea of what's going on, and we need to trust them with it.
Right. Exactly. So when did you first realize that you were a storyteller? Because that is what inspired you to go to journalism school, I'm assuming. So when was that? When was that first, drop of inspiration?
So my career choices actually started from very tragic circumstances. In my family, there was a lot of like domestic violence drama. But prior to that, I'd seen a lot of where I was growing up. I'd seen a lot of like sort of my mother's friends or people's wives who were treated quite poorly by their husbands. And at the time, so I said, it started with me saying I wanted to become a lawyer. I was actually specifically like, I wanted to be a divorce lawyer. And then I went to court a few times. I was like, this is not going to work. I was like, this is not going to work. And then I was like, well, I remember that at school, whenever we had exams that required a lot of writing, I always asked for extra sheets of paper. So I was like, I seem to know how to write a lot. And so with that, I was like, you know what, then I'm going to tell the stories about these people. So that was really it. That was my ambition at the time. I just wanted to tell the stories about all the terrible things that were happening around me. And that was my mission, essentially, to becoming a journalist. And so it's in the process of kind of going to school and studying journalism. Luckily, I also went to an art university in England that allowed experimentation. So there I started playing with sound arts in radio features, and just different kinds of things. And being around so many artists kind of allowed me to think very differently. Luckily, my professor also I remember telling my professor that, I write poems. And she was like, and I would like to infuse it in my radio projects in some way. And she was like, yeah, you should. And so this kind of like encouraged me to continuously like experiment with storytelling. My friends were filmmakers, people were doing advertising, animators. So I was just around this kind of very creative energy and saw how stories could be told and displayed in so many interesting ways. And I think it always, before leaving school, my mind was just very open to a gamut of ways to tell stories that was beyond just writing it or making a radio show or radio program about it or TV program. It was like I could just do anything, really. Yeah. So and I think in those moments I knew that art was storytelling. Even cooking food was storytelling.
Life lived is a story. Yeah. So interesting.
When we're cooking and making things, we're telling stories, you know?
So you're mentioning your university years and having that flexibility. So I want to let's understand why the where. So how did you come to be living and working back in Nigeria after being outside?
So I had graduated from university. I was working. I had a job in human resources for the police whilst I was doing like freelance journalism. Because it's really difficult just getting jobs. Yeah, jobs in media at the time in the UK. But I was doing it freelance. I was doing freelance gigs and then also had like another like steady day job. I think I had made a lot of friends online, Facebook at the time, who were in Nigeria. Because I think I'd come to Nigeria the year before for like the first time since leaving Nigeria. I'd left like for almost 10 years. And I think I'd been back just once, met a bunch of people. And so we kept in touch on Facebook and they kept going, you should come and explore. And Lagos at the time was just like this fresh renaissance of arts going on and really like interesting creative people, music, like the whole like Afro beats and all this stuff hadn't blown up yet. People were just making music in like little underground studios. I'd met people who were like filmmakers, like writing their scripts. It was just this massive fertile ground of like young creative people. We were all in our 20s trying to make art in some way. I almost felt like we're kind of like, it felt like a first proper generation of people who wanted to make arts, who weren't like doc lawyers and things like that. And so it was very exciting. And so I had all these friends saying, you should come back, you should come. There are radio stations here opening, you will totally get a job. And you can do all these different interesting things. And I decided I was going to come for a year. So I just packed up stuff. I said I was giving myself like, I think 9 months. I bought a return ticket for like 9 months. Came to Lagos in like January of 2009. By February, I had a job at a radio station. Before I knew it, I was like writing on blogs. I had this writing on Bella Naija. And just like, I was then starting to grow an online presence and audience and community as well. My friends were like musicians, filmmakers, producers. I'd hung out in their studio, like a studio rat all the time. So you'd meet all these different musicians. Before you know it, I was like, I want to try and make a poetry album thing. They're like, okay, let's do it. And one person's like producing the music and you're going in and recording every couple of days. There's book readings happening. There's open mics in the city. So it was just like this explosion of like fresh artistry and fun, right? There was no money in it yet. Nobody was set. We just wanted an audience and a space to express ourselves. And then that was how I stayed in Lagos till this very day.
Makes sense. Yeah.
There were book clubs. People hung out at book clubs, would write and would critique each other's work as well. It was so beautiful. It's not like that anymore. But every time I remember those times quite fondly.
Yeah.
It was so fresh.
It was similar in Ghana around that time. You could go to any, and maybe it was just the times, we hadn't yet gone to the social media, like where social media just like sucked the life out of the genuine relationship that I think people who are creative have with their art and communicating and expressing it. So yeah, I'd say for a good 5 years up until like maybe, from like 2009 to 10 to like maybe 2014, 15.
2013. Yes. I feel like things started to dwindle 2014, 2015.
Exactly.
Yes. But before then, I even made friends in Ghana as well. I remember I did my first time in Ghana, I think 2011, and for this friends called Yari Yari Ntuaso. It was amazing. Everything was just like artistic vibe.
It was. It was. Yeah.
People shared their writing on Facebook and then you critiqued writings on Facebook or poems on Facebook. It was so cool.
It was.
Yeah, it was such a cool vibe.
I wonder if we'll move back in that direction. Well, no, I don't think we will. I think the AI evolution.
I don't think so. Yeah, I think that era is over.
Yeah.
I see a lot of young people trying to do interesting things, but I think that, there's also like money and capital that's infiltrated the system of art that's changed how we experience and relate to art. So I'm around a lot of young artists, and you can see there is a sense of, oh, what am I supposed to be doing that's going to get me here? That sort of instinct of play and experimentation feels like it's gone.
I would agree. With the exception of maybe someone who's played enough to get funding to be able to go back into the playground.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, so that's, to go back into it. Exactly.
Yeah. That's what I've noticed. Like those people who like maybe made it with some kind of fellowship or some kind of recognition, then they can go back and go into it, which then goes to the gatekeeping that is art in a lot of ways.
And they've also experienced the system. They understand the ins and outs. They're sometimes a bit jaded, and they can go and they have the means now. They can go back to like playing again. But yeah, it's really interesting to see much younger people either copying each other's work, some type of work, because they feel this is what is going to take them to where they need to go.
Absolutely.
I'm a strategic person, but sometimes the over strategizing is a little too much, and there's not much room for there's just breath in, the organic nature of seeing things happen and trying things out and playing.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a good time to ask. So how did you then make that transition? Because you've built a whole career now. So you came, you played a little, you were in it. And so how then do you now pay your bills? Become like a real businesswoman, because, you're an entrepreneur at the end of the day, for the most part.
100%. Yeah. No, I think, you grow in the work. It does get to a point where you realize it's also, you can offer it as a service, or it's in demand as a service, right? And so I think this is where I now had to start thinking of my artistic pursuits and my commercial pursuits.
Oh, yes. Indeed.
You start to think about things that way. This is where, you start to demarcate certain things, so I always say, like, my albums are for me. Nobody's involved in that. They're self-funded. They're not made with anybody in mind, anything in mind. They're my own personal therapy. The stories I want to put into the world, they belong to me. Then if I'm commissioned to them, when I'm at corporate events, that's a commission. That's client's work. In fact, it's poetry, but it's also copywriting, in my opinion, as well. So I see it as a sort of like corporate storytelling. I make these divisions in my brain of what different things are as a result. Yes. So I think having that kind of sense of like, okay, within this art that I'm making, what can I extrapolate and present as a service to people, right? Because within poetry, writing and storytelling is a skill set. Organizations need people to be able to communicate their values or their principles or their achievements to the rest of the world, probably through advertising, through events, through whatever, through activations, through whatever it is. And so how do I take that skill set and offer it as a service or as a business to people? So those are kind of part of those things. I also used to work as a journalist. So I'm writing, stories and earning a living from that. Now I work with projects, sometimes I'm working within a project, and it could be like the content part of the project or the storytelling part of the project, where I have to write like, blogs or certain other parts of, or just creative strategy and tinkering from my experience being within the arts in itself, of programming so programming, directing things. So teaching as well. So I can create and design a program, right, for an organization. I can create and design probably even like a fellowship program. I can curate as well. So again, all of those things are skill set. They're project management skill sets involved in making things, putting things together and coordinating things. So essentially, it's really also, I know that people often think of art as this very airy-fairy thing, but the making art is skill.
Exactly.
Exactly. Art making is skill. Yeah. If I'm making a poetry album, I'm going to write the poems. I'm working with the producer. I have to coordinate with them. So even my artistic sensibilities with dealing with sound and my own performance and my text is there, but then also organizing to know what works and what doesn't work. There's decision-making within that as well. I have to do all of this stuff myself. So I have to market and promote it myself. What's the content ideas I'm going to use to market it? making videos, making visuals. Like I'm like a record label.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Like
yeah.
I'm a record label, meaning I can actually work for a record company.
Yes.
I can
Yeah. You
consult
could
for a
have your
record
own,
company.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Your own
I could
units.
consult. So I could do like consultancies for artists and, repertoire, and our artists and a repertoire in marketing for your creativity, or you have a new product or you have a new exhibition. How do you want to promote it? Are we writing a newsletter? How are we getting the audiences? How are we getting people to sign up? What platforms best work for us to promote this thing? What are the ways? So yeah, I always say, like, just whatever you're doing, extrapolate the skill set and then see how you can apply it to people that can pay you money for those skills. And that's how I live. Yeah.
Right. Would you say that's kind of the genesis of the comfort food workshops?
So the comfort food workshop was another very random moment. So I also do that workshop as well. Yeah. So I do that. Yeah, that's what I did in Ghana.
Yes, exactly. So tell us about that, the genesis of it and how,
Yeah. So the genesis of it was during the pandemic. We're in lockdown. I love cooking.
Yes.
I love cooking. So we didn't have anything we're doing with our lives in that time. People weren't taking showers sometimes, but I found myself cooking a lot. And then because of the time, I was really taking time to like relish in the cooking, and doing that, I started taking photographs of the food I was cooking every day. Then I started sharing the photographs on Instagram. But I'm also not, I always say to people, I'm not a food blogger. So I was like, I don't cook with measurements necessarily. Most African, a lot of us don't. You just let the ancestors lead. So I was sharing the photographs, and then I decided that I was just going to write stories about things underneath the food. So I would write either stories of, sometimes you call memories, sometimes I'll complain about the government in that point in time. Sometimes I would just associate like an interesting memory with the meal. And people were just enjoying reading the stories and, commenting on them while they were looking at the food and like, oh, please, you're going to cook this for me soon or something. And my brother sent me a DM because he usually would come to our house on Sundays to eat. But then because of lockdown, he couldn't come.
Oh, right.
And so he was like, yo, like, I really miss the food. And you are like really like, tantalizing us on the internet with all of this food. And then he just goes, the stories are really funny. And some of them remind me of our lives. And you should totally do something around food and like conversations or stories. And then he says, you should call it comfort food, and I was like, oh, I really love the name. I really love the title. I was like, I'll think about it. And I'd been thinking for like over 2 years about starting my own poetry workshop as a poet, because just something that allows me teach people through my own personal methods. But I couldn't figure anything out because I was really I wanted to do something that was not the typical thing everybody else did. And then in that moment, I was like, I do have a lot of poems around food, and food is like a big prompt and inspiration. And I was like, this could be my poetry workshop. And I just called it comfort food. And then I started and I made a syllabus using different food prompts that lead to another to events. So you write a poem that leads to another thing, leads to another poem, to the final result poem.
Combination. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And that was how comfort food started. And I did it once, and then, I did it. People invite me and I do it wherever.
That's lovely. mean, it's great. It's great because you've done another, I was reading about the reclaiming the tongue.
Yes.
So that came after, I believe.
Yes. I think that came after I did comfort food. Yes, exactly. Yes. Sure. So because I had done comfort food and I was sharing the food, the professor had seen it and he was like, I would like you to curate this series on food and history. And I was like, absolutely, I'd love to do that. And that was how that came about as well.
Okay.
So it's like one work kind of leads to the other,
Yeah. I mean, that's the wonderful part about the creative process and just, being with creators. So the mix has gone from the coffee shops and the underground studios to this more kind of, I guess, academic / other places where you're meeting different collaborators to do that type of thing. So that makes a lot of sense. So let's talk about Glocal Speak. You're speaking about food. And so I'm thinking about different words and phrases. So we want to hear what you hear. So please share a word, a phrase, or a saying that's a meaningful part of your local experience and why you value it as Glocal Speak.
Oh wow, I'm trying to think. There's so many, but
I
so
know.
I'm gonna say this one because like our housekeeper says it all the time, and it's always around what food as well. So I think the way that we say, like I'm not conversant with something yet. She always says, "You never master me." My hand never strong. And usually it's, maybe because whenever I'm cooking, I'm showing her stuff. And then she goes, ma, don't worry. This one, you go master me soon. You never master me yet. And I quite love this like idea of expertise and mastery, so even making something is like a masterful process. And
I
a
like
process
it.
of mastery, And sometimes I'd make like a coffee, like showing her how to make coffee. I was like, and then, she'd give me the coffee and then she's like waiting for me to taste it to see if it's good. And then I'm like, this person, you don't master me, you don't master me. And I really love that, like the idea of knowing and embodiment is like, it's mastery.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that sentiment and that observation because what I'm taking away from that is that she has aspirations in her role, right? So she's really invested in doing a good job. And so that is something that I wish that, and on every level, so that I wish, so, I told that story before because that's where I felt the breakdown was with the power company, is that everyone wasn't invested in doing their job. Today they were. Everyone that I encountered today was invested in doing their job well. Even to the extent that I went and reported the woman who was on her phone not doing her job, and they were like just so gracious about everything. And so I love that statement, that sentiment, because just as you said, the idea of mastering something and aspiring to do so and looking to do better and more, I think it's a great thought.
I think when she says it, it's how sometimes people say we're used to things being said all the time, but we're not thinking consciously about it. And I think because it's something that is said so much in my household, I just love the word, the way it's said, because it feels like with everything, like this idea. So you're taking into the world a sense of wanting to be a master and mastery in things. And so it feels like it goes from just a description of something to an ethos.
Right. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
And I think that's why it's really stayed with me.
Yeah. So speaking about that, just thinking about, we were talking about being an entrepreneur and a solopreneur for the most part when you're a consultant. And when you think about how you organize yourself for success and how you organize yourself for scaling up, what are some of the tools and techniques, and also taking into account where we are technologically now, what are some of the tools and techniques that you often use and go to optimize and increase your productivity?
Ooh, I'm trying to think of if there are physical tools. I think a lot of tools for me it's become very much more mental and more decision based as opposed to not necessarily technologically based. I find for me, it's very much about sharpening your decision making instincts as well. Because I think those are the things that kind of, you can have all these technological advancements. You can use your people that use ChatGPT to do whatever they need to do, or AI, or even some people outsource and things like that. I think that really, for me, it really starts with your ability to make decisions, make them quick, like really sharpening your gut and being focused, right? I think that's at the core of it for me. I'm always interested in like simplifying things first before all the extra stuff. What am I capable of doing in terms of like my sense of energy and time, because it's not infinite. What projects are part, what projects are going to be meaningful, and how do I, again, manage my time to projects? Essentially, it's a lot of project managing, but I think decision making is a very big thing. What is going to be part of like my future? Is it going to lead to the things that I want it to lead to? Because I think particularly as creatives and even creative entrepreneurs, there is on one hand, there is the excitement of just wanting to create and, being excited by opportunities on one hand. There's another hand where it's such a precarious career that, you're always kind of financially anxious and feel like you need to take on much more than you should. So you're always kind of battling these two, this excitement and anxiety at the same time. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done to get to a point of quelling those, just like being able to calm down those anxieties financially and also regulate your creative excitement sometimes. It's important for you to have that fire, but sometimes it's necessary to be able to regulate it so that you can then say, okay, I'm thinking clear-headed. There's clarity here. I can decide what I need to do, what's necessary, what's going to help me earn enough for this time to do what I need to do as well. So I think biggest tools for me is kind of like sharpening your gut and being able to regulate yourself to make good decisions.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And so kind of following on that, thinking about the impact of your advocacy, because sometimes taking that chance might be a compromise that impacts you financially or, professionally. So in your defining who you are and how you work, because your creative is that it's kind of subversive, and it's, sometimes it's in your face, and it's really, challenging people to think very differently. Yeah. How do you navigate that when you do have to think about the economics of who you are and how you want to establish yourself in both the commercial and the artistic spaces?
I'm trying to, so there's this thing where I've been told or asked before, and I ask people the same thing, which is, it's very important to ask yourself, what kind of artist do you want to be? And I find that when you can ask yourself that question and answer that question, it becomes easier to decide like the kind of artist you want to be, and then figure out what you need to support being that kind of artist. Right. And so I think that's the way it is for me. I know that my work is a certain way inclined. I speak about very heavy topics and very heavy subject matter, whether that's about violence, about the lives of women, whether it's about the body, whether it's whatever it's about. And so I know that, there might be some jobs that I don't get. So again, as a result, I'm like, I list out my skill set. So what am I able to do? And like really kind of like go gung-ho in that direction in that field or the spaces that would hire me to do that work. And again, just kind of build expertise in that. And I find that I've been able to do well, in that. So I do have, so even within my commercial practice, in my consultancy work, I work with like nonprofits and museums, cultural institutions. So I'm working again, still within the space of the areas of things that interest me anyway. So that's what I find. So essentially that's kind of it. Yeah. So you kind of find the area and the field that allows you, financially supports you to be able to do the kind of work that you do. You have to make peace with the fact that you're not for everyone and you're not going to be able to be hired by everyone,
Right.
There's some kinds of like commercial gigs, even commercial poetry gigs I probably won't get because I'm not seen as cool enough. I'm seen as this like very serious, hardcore person. And, they're not going to call me. They're like, she's a bit too serious for us. It's not fun. I'm just like, you have to be okay. It's like, you're not going to get that money. So just go and do the thing you need to do. Just, be a good, be a financially responsible person so that you can live well off what you're able to earn. Yeah. And earn well. Yeah. And still be business
right.
About,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So this is a good time to ask about a mindset hack. So how do you hack your mindset? What exactly do you do? Is it a practice, something you imagine?
Mindset hack. I walk a lot. I like meditative exercises. So I do a lot of walking and swimming. These long, monotonous activities, long, boring, monotonous activities just allow me purge, constantly like have these debates in my brain out. So it's like low octane like things allow my brain do all the high octane stuff. So I find that it helps me that kind of purge every morning or evening, whichever one I do. But ultimately, I think my ethos, I don't even know that it's even a hack. I just have an ethos, which is get on with it. Just get on with it. Life is life. Life will do things to you, will throw things at you. You will have moments where you're like, do I give up now? Is this working? Or you feel sorry for yourself. And it's okay. Like, feel your feelings, but get on with it. That's really and I think I got that from my mother. She's always like, she always says, get it together. So literally my mindset is always just we don't have any choice right now. We just have to get on with it.
Right.
But in more recent times, the one thing I've sort of figured out as well is understanding your energy at different points. And with that, show up in the way that you need to. So for instance, there are moments where my energy is high, life is good, I'm excited. And because of that, I can do so much more. I'm more productive. And so what I do in that time is literally just go ham on ideas, on work I'm doing, on productivity. And then the moments where my energy is low, sometimes maybe you've been hit by a few rejections, you're just feeling, kind of down. I don't luxuriate in it or ruminate in it, but I just show up.
Yeah.
Right. So I might not be able to give 100% or 200, but I'm going to give something in that time. So it's all like, whether today you're planting, maybe tomorrow you're just watering, whatever it is, all adds up. So yeah. And it allows you kind of keep equilibrium. So it never feels like you're starting from scratch every single time. You never feel like you're trying to build your energy back, because 1 minute you were like 200. Then the next minute, your body and your mind is giving you 0. But you know what? I'm going to push myself and just do 50. Either way, the graph never goes like, it's not that drastic. So the graph can go up, then it can come down a little bit. It can stabilize at some point. Yeah. It goes back up again, but we're never going down to rock bottom.
Right. And that's it.
We must maintain not getting to rock bottom.
Yeah. That's a hack. That's a hack.
So that's kind of how I kind of move.
Yeah.
We're not going back down. You have lived enough, you have experienced enough to be able to at least float.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like, if you're, on some days your energy is high, you go on a 10-kilometer walk or run if you're a runner. And on some days, like, I just don't feel like doing anything. Maybe you're even on your period that week. And you're like, you know what? I'm just going to do 5K. I'm going to hustle this 5K. It's going to be a drag. I'm going to do it. And you just give them 5 kilometers and that's it. But the point is that at least you're closer to, yes.
You did it. Yeah.
And that's that's been like a recent mindset thing for me.
I think you hit it on the nose when you said it's an ethos, because I think that there's just some ways that we understand our energy and our baseline. Like you said, your family's always understood that you are going to, you have it handled. So yeah, I get it. I get it. And it's work for others to get there, but recognizing that that this is who you are, I think is a great place.
And I think it's part of this thing about mastery that we're speaking about, right? Understanding yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's really what mastery is. The more you understand yourself, the more you know what you need, when you need it, and you know when you need rest, you know how to rejuvenate yourself, when you need a bit of joy in your life and how to go find that. So the more you know yourself.
Exactly. I'm curious now to talk a little bit more about, the ways that you're able to accomplish what you accomplish. Fellowships. That's a big part of a lot of professional writers and just kind of the idea of pouring into yourself to some extent, because fellowships are typically self-designed and self-run and that type of thing. So tell us about your strategy and how you were able to get the fellowships that you've had and what you've produced out of those fellowships.
So my first set of fellowships were mostly journalism fellowships. At the time I was writing freelance and stuff like that. Some of them were fellowships that allowed you to go report in a different country. So there were some of those. I think there were a few that were just learning. So you, again, just immersing yourself in a different space with a cohort of other writers, community, that sort of thing. And so again, fellowships are another thing where they're also very competitive.
Right.
So you when you're applying for them as well. But I think, it's one of those things where you're like, it's something I need to advance my work or, and to grow. And you just have to, you have to not take the rejections personally, I say. So sometimes you even get to a point, and at the risk of sounding mechanical, you get to a point where you're like, this is a lottery. The more we apply, the more likely our chances of getting it. Then I think by the time maybe I got there was one I applied 6 times. There was one of them. In fact, the last time I was so nonchalant, I was like, I'm not doing this anymore, So I was surprised that I got it. because I was like, this is the last time I'm doing this nonsense. I'm not doing this anymore. I was like so angry. Yeah, I was so angry. But I got it, and I got to do some reporting in Rwanda.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the more you do them as well, you also start to understand that you get to a space where you also understand that it's also not about, things are not always about you, right? So you learn not to take rejection personally. Sometimes in those particular years, the organization is looking for a certain kind of person. Sometimes they're looking to advance certain kinds of ideas. So you might not fit into the ideas at that moment, or people that work in that space in that moment. So sometimes it's just not your time in that regard, but has nothing to do with your abilities and your skill sets.
Right.
Exactly. And I think the more you start to understand the way systems work, the less you take things personally. But I think what I love about even trying to get fellowships or residencies or things like that, and I encourage people to do as many of them, to apply for as many of them as possible, they really help you refine your own ideas.
Right.
Because you're constantly re-articulating. Those essays are an exercise in articulation every single time. You're asked the question in so many different ways. You're thinking about your work in ways you weren't thinking about them before. So now I welcome the experience of applications, because it's more than getting the thing. Sometimes I'm like, oh, so this is what I'm trying to get here, or this is the thing I'm doing, because you haven't asked yourself those questions. And the applications are asking you those questions. So it's self-interrogation as well. And I think it's a great exercise to get into. So I think once you start thinking, everyone talks about the reframe, but I think once you start thinking about things differently, it's like, how is this going to be a benefit to me?
Yes.
It's not about them. It's about you.
Right.
And sometimes at the very least, you have a new synopsis for a project. That was just blowing me
Exactly.
At the very least, that's what will come out of it. You do 20 applications, you refine this idea, you have a roadmap, you have a synopsis, you have a treatment, you have a proposal that you didn't have 3 months ago.
Exactly.
That you were just talking about with friends. Oh my God, I have this idea, I want to do this, I want to do that. But you've not done anything about it. But then these applications have allowed you to think through it methodically as well. It's a communication exercise, right, of your artistry. So this is how I really kind of think about it. And there's been great things that have happened. As I said, sometimes I've been able to write reports in different countries, write articles. My last residency, I started a book I'm writing, which I think was amazing. That was a great time to just was quiet. And I was like writing every single day. And, I also learned about myself, and again, just learn about like routine, like the real power of routine. Like, look, even if it's 300 words that come out, the point is at the end of 2 months, you have 10,000 words. Some days you can do 2,000, some days you can do, but you have something. I think it really showed me how, you just have to sit and commit to getting things done, because it forces you into silence without distraction as well.
Right.
So
okay, so you piqued our interest. So my next question was, what's new and next for Wana? You talked about a book, but what's new and next? What can we expect?
So I'm trying to write this nonfiction book at the moment. So and it's a book about the body. So that's where I am in terms of project that I'm working on. So that's it. I'm just continuing to like write more poetry. I was thinking I wanted to work on a new album, but I also promised myself, so I give myself themes every year. And the theme for this year was focus and distillation. And I was like, try not to be distracted, Wana. Try not to be distracted. So sometimes my body's like itchy. I was like, it's been like 5 years since my last album. I would like to make a new one. So I've just been like, when I have like breaks in between, I'm writing poems, but I'm like coming down, like giving myself I want to produce something this year and focus on what my main intention was, which is a draft of this book.
I feel you 100% on that, because I get those kinds of moments where I'm like, ooh, I want to, but focus on
and the world. I think the world has become increasingly distracted.
It's
so much harder. I think about now and when I was younger and how I'd be able to just like be in a zone, locked in, and produce stuff. Now there's just so much stuff. And then of course with social media, I also grew up in the social media age. So you know how crucial it is to promoting your work and marketing your work and branding what you do. And so your socials are part and parcel of your job as well, whether that is posting, engaging community. And it's so easy to also be distracted by that, because you could spend the whole day between LinkedIn posts, and Instagram posts, and engaging on threads.
Exactly.
And the whole day is gone, and you were working, but nobody's gonna think you were working.
Right.
But you were working.
Yeah. That's I mean, my social is scheduled because of that purpose, that reason. I can't just, come on and go off. I'm not a big go deep and all that, but I know that for the work that I do, I have to have this time scheduled, and that's just work. So yeah, to your point, it is that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So now that we've spoken all about the work, let's talk about the play. Are you a reader, a writer, or a listener? Or what other things do you do when you are not working?
Ooh, yeah, I'm a reader. Okay, I'm a listener. I'm a watcher.
Yeah. And so what are some of your favorite reads, watches, or listens?
Okay. Reads, one of my favorite books. It's even here, actually. Oh gosh. Yeah. So it's one of my favorite books is Like a Mule Bringing Ice Cream to the Sun.
Oh wow.
By Sarah Ladiko Manika. Absolutely love that book. I just finished reading All Fours by Miranda July.
Okay.
Which I really love this book, but it's been divisive, but I love it so much. I feel like everybody needs to read it.
I haven't heard of either of these, so these are great.
Sexual awakening. They're both, what's so interesting? I just thought about this now. They're both about older women and their sexuality and sexual awakenings.
Okay.
Yes. So yeah. And maybe that's why I'm drawn to them, because I want more protagonists who are very sexually expressive and older. Yes. So they're both. So I think maybe that's what drew. I didn't think about the correlation, but there is. Yeah. So Miranda July's All Fours, which is the more recent one I read, and Sarah's book I absolutely love. What am I listening to? I haven't been listening to. In terms of like self-help, I read in December. I read The Big Leap, which I really enjoyed. And I think it's the book that speaks to the phenomenon on your genius, getting to your genius, your zone of genius. So moving from, it talks about different zones, your zone of competence and zone of excellence, and moving to your zone of genius, and the things that can distract you from reaching your zone of genius. So again, I suppose it's also about mastery. Yeah, I quite enjoyed reading that. So that was my December listening. I'm a repetitive music listener. Which is, so I, that kind of person where I just find one album and I'm listening to them for a while, the same person for a while. So I keep going back to listening to a Florence and the Machine.
Oh, okay.
I love quite a lot.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of flow.
Okay.
I've not been listening to any podcasts lately, to be fair. I haven't, because I think I'm oversaturated with podcasts. They're quite a lot.
Yes. I know. I'm curious that you say that though. Because this thing, I'm nearly 100% committed to just the audio of podcasts, because I'm a child of radio. So it's always been about listening for me. And so with the new video, not new, but with video podcasts, I actually have had a friend who told me, I don't listen to your podcast because I need to watch it.
It's not video.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. And so it's just so interesting to me that
people say that, but I don't need to watch. I don't need to watch. Maybe because I was a radio host as well. So I'm good with sound.
Yeah. I think that's the distinction.
I don't need to watch. Yeah. I don't need to watch it. I think this is just recently that I listen to a lot of podcasts, but recently I'm just like, okay, it's just, and I think, I know the problem. I've also been listening to audiobooks on my walks. Yes. So in my head, it's like I'm listening to podcasts.
Yes, exactly.
I think that's what it is.
I believe I listen to more books than podcasts myself. So I'm with you on that same.
So as I'm reading, sometimes I'm reading some books physically. Sometimes I'm listening to books like when I go on my walk in the morning. So in my head, it's like, it's like, it feels like a podcast at the same time.
Yeah. And there's only so much time.
Yes. I haven't watched anything recently. Earlier in the year, I watched Conclave, which I really enjoyed.
Okay.
Yes, I watched Conclave. I watched, what was the one? The one with Demi Moore? Not Nora, the one with Demi Moore. I watched
the one where she got nominated for the Oscar.
Yes.
Okay.
I watched that one.
Okay.
But that was not a favorite watch or anything.
It was just.
I just need to check out Netflix and see what's going on. I know that there's a new series called Forever, and I'm going to definitely check.
Oh, yeah. I saw a post that I wouldn't have known, except for I saw a post by Nnedi Okorafor that said her book was, one of her books was in it.
Oh,
yeah. So I was like, oh, okay. I never even knew. Yeah. I feel sometimes for me to be in the media, I'm a little bit out of the loop-ish, but what can I say? There's, like I said.
No, I think, because I think when you work in media, sometimes after a while, you're oversaturated with it because it's work as well.
Yeah, exactly. But thanks for those. Those are great. Those will be in the show notes as well as all of Wana's contact information. So before we go, do you have any last thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Ooh, what do I want to share with you guys? Ooh, okay. I think I know. I'm always bothered by things. And so I think those things that bother me inform new ideas or just reinforce certain things. And I think I've been bothered a lot by the oversaturation of how we should be, right? I don't know if you use social media quite a bit, there's just a stream of things that we need to be doing and how we need to be, whether it's we need to glow up, we need to do this. And I ended up writing a poem about it. We have to eat 150 grams of protein and we have to do this and we have to do all of these things. And it's like, guys, we're okay. You're okay being you.
Yeah.
So I really would like to tell people to slow down, to relax, to be present. You don't need to be living a life where you're a work in progress or a list of things to fix. You are okay. In every iteration of your being, enjoy it, relish in it, be embodied. And as you evolve, relish the new selves that you will become. And no self was worse or better than another. Sometimes you needed the person you were to survive that time. And so, just be present, be embodied. You're valuable, you're meaningful just as you are. You can do all the wonderful things you want to improve your life. It's great.
Yeah.
But you are valuable just as you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that, because I think you're right. There's a lot of pressure and it doesn't have to be. So that's wonderful.
It's too much.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
let's just be.
Guys, are you trying to kill us?
Yes. And be present. Yeah. Be present. And I think that's half the battle.
Can we just be present? Everybody's trying to, even healing has become so commercialized. Mm-hmm. Everyone's on this race to heal from something. Mm-hmm. And it's like, life does things to you. And sometimes there is like irreversible change and you have to learn to live your life with the things that have happened to you.
And just aging.
It doesn't make you defective. Yeah, it doesn't make you defective. It makes you a person.
Yes. Yeah, let's get back to being human. Let's get back to being human.
Let's just be human.
Yeah, thank you.
And we don't have to all alter our personalities to become zen or be a certain way. It's okay. Sometimes somebody's aggression is cute and it's endearing. Sometimes somebody just being chill doesn't mean they're not confident either.
Right. Yeah.
Just, it's okay.
Yeah.
Let's enjoy who we are.
Good. I like that. Thank you so much, Wana. This has been fun.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and informative. So just thank you so much. And I wish you all the best in your writing and your process.
You too.
Thank you. Yay. All right, Glocal citizens, this has been another episode of the podcast. You can catch us Tuesdays with new episodes at glocalcitizenspod.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Please like, share, subscribe, leave us a review. We'd like to hear from you. And it helps others find great content on the internet. I really enjoyed Wana's last thoughts. And so I want to encourage us to let's just be human. Let's be. And so on those last thoughts, until next time, bye for now.